Right now, we are living in a new world of education. Some people have taken to calling it the fourth industrial revolution. And every industrial revolution in history has been accompanied by a massive change in education and a massive societal shift. This one is no different, except that it's been accelerated by a virus of unspecified origin that has accelerated the process that usually follows along with an industrial revolution. You can look at any burgeoning sort of society or country in human history, and you will see that economic growth is immediately followed by educational growth. And educational growth leads to greater industrial growth. This is what happens every time. And in this case, in this fourth one, what's happening is that education is becoming a streamlined process. So you have the boom, the Industrial Revolution, which is just the technological age. You know, information is the new currency instead of anything known before. Trade used to be physical objects, now it's info, and that's what the digital age has become. Now, this affected education because, well, we have online learning. We all know that online learning is a thing. So now what we have in the briefest of terms, is kids sitting in boxes, their rooms or whatever, and then they're staring into a box. They're staring into the screen to learn. And that's all they have all day is that education sent directly from their screen into their eyes, and that's it. That's all they have all day because they aren't allowed to go outside. They're not allowed to interact with other kids. They're not allowed to do anything apart from learn online. There's extensive measures taken to make sure that these kids are learning through this new system, and they are learning or they're being given information. As far as experience and skills in applying this information, they're receiving none of it. That's just factual. But point is, that's how the new system's operating. And how this all connects to the title of this video is that D&D is the solution to the problems that accompany this. Because universally, it's been seen that grades have gone down with technological learning, and depression among students has gone up. A lack of social skills has gone up. A lack of interpersonal understanding and experience has gone up. Kids aren't allowed to interact with kids. You see these toddlers or these elementary schoolers who they've never gotten time to interact with other kids. They're online learning, so they don't know how to play with another child unless they have a sibling of some kind. You know, and it's disturbing as hell to see. And you see it the whole way up from elementary school to college. These kids don't get to interact. They don't get to learn socially. They don't get that anymore. And that brings me to my point, which is how D&D has become so important, I think, or how it can be so important. Because I'm a student. I'm graduating this year from high school. That's supposed to be big, right? Whatever. But this last year, I've lost all caring about education. Like, I'm looking forward to university, but I do not care about the quality of the work that I put in when I'm not in school because where I am, it's kind of fluctuated between in person and online. When I'm online, I don't care. I don't attend class. Most of the time, I sleep through it. I do just enough work to get by, whatever. But in person, I can care. I'm energized, and I put effort in, put effort into my schoolwork, and I get to interact with friends. I get to talk to people. I get to be a human being. And so the only thing that's really like kept me going in that sense, kept me motivated, kept me caring, is D&D, right? Because well, D&D is great. D&D helps build social skills. It helps you interact with other human beings. It's the greatest game in the world. That's what it says on the books, and it is true. And that's why I think it could be so great right now. Because you have these kids who are in total isolation. You have these kids who have no social skills and who can't interact with other kids. because they have to be inside all day. And most of them have been sort of finding a relief in that in online games, Call of Duty, whatever, just means of talking to people in these servers. And I mean, that's perfectly fine, and it's the best they can really get, except for D&D. Because one major thing, one critical thing that has been removed is hobbies, side projects. Kids are no longer being introduced to, just creative pursuits in their spare time, because like you see these dedicated people who already care about like music or writing or anything like that who do it in their spare time regardless. But you can see how hard it is for them to keep going and keep doing it. Uh, but these kids, they don't get the chance to learn about these things or to try these things, and so they're losing their creative edge. Just parents used to talk about like how kids they rot their brains with the TV, they aren't creative because of it, and because of online games and all that kind of stuff. And to a certain point, it's true, because let's face it, playing Call of Duty has never made someone a genius writer or has ever inspired a piece of military fiction that was any good. Uh, because it is military fiction that doesn't inspire creativity. And so, what's the solution to this? Well, an English class can only do so much to teach you about creativity. Uh, but D&D is sort of that out of the box thing where it's not based on basic stimuli to keep you engaged, like something like say Call of Duty or whatever, or these other escapes that people have from the horrific nature of the present state of education. You know, so that's why I'm going to explain how I think D&D sort of fixes the problems. I really should get to the point, shouldn't I? All right. Well, to begin, uh, emotional connectivity and interpersonal relationships. That is something that I've found to be amazing with D&D, where you can sit down with a person to play a game of D&D, and without having ever met them before or really known them all that well, you can rapidly come to understand them and like them sometimes or whatever, because you're seeing them be creative. You're sharing in a narrative experience. You're sharing in a game where you have to talk to each other. You have to communicate, and it's not just like effective communication where you're just trying to affect something or talking to the other person. You're trying to get something out of them. It's role play. You are interacting with people in a fictional social situation. You're not two people behind computer screens. You're two elves in the tavern. That's the difference. You get to imagine being in that fictional scenario and doing interpersonal communication. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one comparison between that and real life, but it's better than the alternative, which is just talking to people from behind your screen. But you can only get so far with that when it's like, what did you get up to today? Nothing. I've sat behind a computer screen all day. It's not very. It doesn't give a lot for interpersonal communication, and that's the beauty of it, where actual role play can help you with that. And since you're doing it with other people, you're getting to practice playing off of each other like improv, you know. And so, by building that interpersonal communication, it would help students, I think, from high school to college to develop those sort of habits, abilities, whatever, or at the very least to maintain them so you don't completely check out with talking to people and you just turn into a total recluse. You could actually have experience still communicating as if you were in real life scenarios. And then there's creativity, which I think that much is obvious because well, you just have to be creative to play D&D at a certain point. Not just to be a DM, but to be involved in the practice of D&D. You need to have sort of a creative thought process in it, solving problems, because eventually there's going to come a problem that you can't solve simply, so you need to think for a second, be creative, and collaborate with other people to help move forward or to further the story or whatever. There's going to be an interesting problem, and you're going to need a creative solution. That's what D&D is at its fundamental point. It's a problem and then a solution, but more often than not, the solution is going to be more creative than you would have originally expected. Maybe it'll start out with something simple like a combat encounter. You hit it till it's dead, but then someone gets creative about it and tries to work out the environment, and then brings it to collaborative storytelling where they ask like, oh, is there rocks on the ground that I could use as caltrops or whatever kind of creative idea like that the DM would then build off of, and then it would circle around to different players trying to combine what they can do, what their characters can do, all that kind of stuff that comes through in D&D inevitably just by virtue of what the game is or what all role-playing games are at a certain point would eventually come through. And so what you have is is a game that can single-handedly not undo but sort of stem the bleeding of the new age of education, you know, that could bring about social interaction without needing to be in person because D&D survives whether or not you're online or offline. Was D&D better in person as a player? Yes, but it's still great online because it's still D&D regardless. And you can't take that away. There's nothing in the world that can stop that can actually prevent that from happening, you know. And so I think that it would be a great idea to just, if you are like a student and you think that you would like to try DMing, then I suggest strongly that you try to just watch some videos, look at the books online, perhaps get a hold of them through less than legal means. Not suggesting it, just it is an option that some people have taken to doing, and just try it out. Or if you're a teacher, I suggest trying to make it part of your education system. Just introducing kids to it, just you know, showing them that it's an option. Maybe having it be like a group building exercise or something. If the teacher ends up watching this for whatever godforsaken reason, or if you're a student who feels that they're struggling with connecting with people and being creative, try it out. There's a billion different ways to get into D&D. All of them are good. And if you're just a random person who's thinking about becoming a DM, student, not a student, whatever, just try it out. Be someone helpful to the community because, let's face it, all of us are kind of struggling in the online age. And just offer a safe and inviting sort of online space for people to play D&D in because it's as good a thing as you can do for anyone in this age of technological suffrage that we all share in. And that's kind of just my recommendation because I know that D&D isn't some miraculous fix-it-all solution here, or that any RPG is, obviously, because it's just a game. But at a certain point, it's a game that means something. It's a game that can change you because you become more creative just by playing it. You become more interested in other people just by playing it. You become better at interacting with other people just by playing it. That's the beauty of the game. And that's why I think that everyone in this modern situation of ours should at the very least look into it. At the very least, give it a fair shake or whatever flavor of RPG uh, floats your boat. Send this to friends who you think might want to give it a try, or to your teacher maybe if you uh, feel like that's a thing you could do comfortably. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my point here, where it's not a be all end all solution, but it is something that will, at the very least, make your brain continue to function creatively. It's a way to exercise, you know, your brain with other people. It's so many things that could help so many people with the present online learning situation and just with the current online situation anyway. Because yes, vaccines are becoming more common, and yes, things are improving, but it's still there. This online learning because it will be for some amount of time. There's a good chance that if it doesn't come back, or at the very least be around for a while, it's a new thing that we all have to kind of deal with, at least in the meantime. So that's why I'm suggesting that you just try it out. Either become a player, or if you feel confident enough, become a DM. You know, yeah, that's kind of all I've got for you. So have a good fucking day.